Hi everyone, it's Patricia here. Today I want to do a quick build guide for those who are getting a Design03 by Arctangent Kool-Aid. So here's the board with the keycaps off, and depending on the layout you want, you'll need a total of 64 to 65 switches, 5 to 6 2U stabilizers, and the Allen wrench that comes with the board. Here's what that looks like. So as you can see, the plate for this has patinaed over time. If you're worried about your plate patinaing, arctangent does provide gloves to avoid touching the plate, so just don't mind any of the beauty marks. I definitely touched this with my hands, which caused the patina over time. But moving on, if you're using the McLovin PCB, you do have a couple different options for the layout. So the first thing is there's regular or stepped caps lock. So this one on the side is regular. If you move this over, that will give you stepped caps lock. So for the bottom row, you can either do a 2U spacebar with a 1.25U right key, or you can do a 2.25U with a 1U right key. The one I have right here is the 2.25U with the 1U right key. When you're putting it on the plate, if you want the 2.25 with the 1U right key, you want to make sure that the switches are all the way to the right. And if you would prefer the other one, which is the 2U spacebar with a 1.25U right key, you want to make sure both of these switches are all the way to the left. So the last thing is the right shift. You have a choice of either doing a 2.75U shift, or you can do what I have here, which is a 1.75U shift with a 1U key. If you do decide on doing the full 2.75U right shift, you'll need a total of 6 stabilizers and 64 switches. But if you decide on the 1.75U right shift like I have here, you'll need a total of 5 stabilizers and 65 switches. And so those are the different layouts that you can pick from. I'll include a photo in case this was confusing, but yeah, you do have a couple different options when it comes to the configuration of the board. So taking apart the board, there are a total of 13 screw points all across the board, and there are 2 different screws. So the top screws are the low profile, as you can see here, and then the ones on the bottom, you can see they kind of stick out a little bit more. So that's how you can tell which one is on the top and bottom. When you're screwing on the case, you want to make sure that you check both the top and bottom screws, but when you're screwing it in, you want to make sure that you're not doing it so tight that it actually cracks the acrylic. When putting together the case, I only unscrewed the top screws. I did not mess with the bottom at all. So here we will take apart the board. Alright, so the screws are all off, and when you're assembling the case, you just need to know that the first 3 acrylic layers are what goes on top. So set this aside. And then you have your plate right here. So as I said earlier, don't mind the patina. But here's the plate. When you're assembling it, what you want to do is you want to take the PCB and the plate, and you just want to screw in your stabilizers, and then you want to make sure all these switches are fully seated within the plate. So this is the copper plate. For me, in the Fierce Girl switches, it was a little hard to make sure they're fully seated. I would highly recommend using gloves if your fingers are sensitive to make sure all the switches are pushed in. But once you have fully seated all the switches, you have your stabilizers, then you just need to solder the back, which I have already done here. So here's the bottom case for those who wanted to see it. You would put the case foam here. There are 3 sheets before you get to the full bottom piece. And if you take this apart, you can see like the curves are all right there, right here. Yeah, so when I assembled it, I didn't mess with this bottom case at all, but in case you are wondering, it is the full back piece right here, and then 3 sheets, then the plate and PCB, and then 3 more sheets on top of that. And when you're putting this in, you just want to make sure not to use too much force. You don't want to crack any of the acrylic. So like that. Whenever you're putting the case back together, you just want to make sure that all the standoffs are sticking out like this. Sometimes the bottom pieces will poke out like this, which is not correct, so you want to make sure you push it all in and just set it down, and then just make sure everything right here is sticking out. After you've finished soldering everything, you take your plate with your PCB, you just put it on top. So same thing here, you just want to make sure that everything is sticking out. So you can see this part is not sticking out, so I'm going to push it in, push it in. So make sure all these standoffs are poking out. So you know which piece is on top because the top piece does not have the USB cutout right here. And you can see these two do. The bigger piece goes first, and then the smaller, and then the top piece, once again, doesn't have the cutout. So at this point, all the standoffs should be pretty even. It's like poking out a little bit, but you just want to make sure to align all of that, and then you just screw it in. So I would recommend putting in all the screws but not tightening them all the way. I just put in one by one and screw it in a little bit. Make sure that it goes in. So I just loosely screw them in before tightening it all, just to make sure that everything is in place. And I'm not really doing this in any particular order, I'm just making sure these are all screwing in. Alright, so now all the screws are loosely in, and then I will go back with my little Allen wrench and just screw everything in. Like I said earlier, you don't want to make it too tight because there's a chance of cracking the acrylic, but that's only if you know, really make it super tight. But it's just a little precaution for those who are not sure how far to screw in these screws. Sometimes you just want to do it so that it's just tight enough. Right, so all of them have been screwed in, and this is where I would go back and make sure that the bottom pieces are also screwed in. This is a different size from the one that he gives you, but since these protrude out like this, it's actually pretty easy to just go in with your fingers and make sure they're all tight. Put the keycaps on. Alright, so here's the board with all the keycaps on. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little build guide. If you have any questions, join Arctangent's Discord where he's very active in answering all questions. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more keyboard content. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys around. See ya!